All right, welcome in on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time for Miami Hurricanes Live with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So we come your way each and every week to talk Miami football. It's very vital that you subscribe to the channel because you get the notifications to know exactly when we're going to be live. We would love to mark down a day and a time each and every week when which we can bring this to you, but we've got work schedules, we've got family schedules, we've got all sorts of things in the mix. So it's very important to get the notifications to know when this week's show will be coming your way. We got Cam Underwood, of course, on the line. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Just hanging out, waiting for my delivery driver who's texting me talking about, oh, you should be ready when I ordered dinner at 6:45. So I would have eaten before I came on the microphone, but he wanted to try me. Anyway, otherwise, I'm pretty good. Got through another National Signing Day and everything, which I know that we're going to talk about. So, yeah, I'm good. How are you? You sound better this week as opposed to last week. Yeah?
This is a long road of recovery. I'm not used to this. I'm one of these that, first of all, I say this all the time and probably shouldn't state it out there, but I quote unquote never get sick is what I tell people. Well, I got sick.
Right.
And then the other thing, and usually I can fend it off and it's just kind of like a day and a half and boom. But I don't feel awful, but I've sounded awful for, it seems like forever. So
no, I get it. I missed those 2 weeks because of that. So I hear you.
I tell you. So the more talking Cam does on a regular basis is a good thing anyway, but especially this week. And that was the case last week. And people are going to want to hear what you have to say about Avante Williams because this is enormous. Second-rated safety in the nation, top 50 player regardless of position. And he pulled through on a comment that I heard him make a number of times and post on social media and other platforms that he really, 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 really wanted to go to Miami. And what that told me at the time was he really wants to go to Miami, but he also wants to know, is this program going to win?
Right.
And he made that decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously winning is a key component to recruiting and everything, but so are relationships. And at the end, Miami's had a 4-year relationship with Avante Williams from, basically the time he was an 8th grader. Was the first time that, 8th grader rising 9th grader was the first time that they made contact or he came down for a visit to a camp and everything. Obviously through his cousin Lorenzo Lingard's recruitment a couple of years ago and everything. And they've been consistent with that. And you started to hear some whispers of that. You started to hear, hey, he really values relationships. He really, whatever. And yeah, I mean, obviously he does. And that ended up playing out as one of the deciding factors, if not the deciding factor, is just the longevity of the connection there with Manny Diaz and Ephraim Banda from, Diaz's time as defensive coordinator before being head coach. And he was involved in that recruitment. Ephraim Banda's been the safeties coach all the way through and everything. And I mean, it's a big win. He's a top 50 player. These are the blue chip kind of guys that Miami should be getting. And yes, he's the 3rd, 4th safety in this class with Brian Balaam, Jalen Harrell, and Keyshawn Washington, although Keyshawn Washington is probably going to move down to striker. I mean, he's the best prospect of those 4, even though he was the last one in and everything. But I mean, look, this is a guy who, I mean, it's funny seeing, Florida fans talking about, oh, he's slow and everything. Like he timed at a 4.52, Avante Williams did. And his Twitter handle is slowdownboy7 because he runs so fast. He needs to slow down, and like Avante Williams is a guy who's going to test in the 4.4s once he gets into college. I mean, and he plays in the 4.4s if you watch him on film. Like one of his first clips on his senior film is there's a punt and it goes and it like the ball like scoots down and it like kind of bounces and stops like a dead standstill. And he picks it up and he's around the corner faster than anybody else. Like this is a guy with massive, I mean, real kind of speed. I got to be a nerd in my recruiting notebook for him and break out some physics. So, forces mass times acceleration. And he's not the biggest guy. So his mass isn't massive, but his acceleration, AKA his speed, you put that together. And I mean, dude, like he hits guys and guys go down. It's like I said about Brian Balaam, when he makes contact at the point of contact, that's where the runner stops. It's not he hits and then, oh, we're going to go forward. No. I mean, Avante Williams will stop you dead in your tracks. Obviously, like every player coming from high school, he needs to refine his technique. But I mean, he's elite as elite gets. and it's a huge win for Miami, especially head up against Florida. Getting a guy who was at the top of the class back in this class, because Avante Williams was committed to Miami. He committed on the same day that Lorenzo Lingard did a couple of years ago, his cousin. Decommitted, committed to Oregon, was going to go out there, but then realized, dude, that's far for his family. And not just like, his parents and cousins and everything. Avante Williams has 2 children. So, it's a thing where you're like, yo, I'm going to leave my kids and go over here. I mean, even though you're, pursuing a better life and everything, Darnell Washington from Las Vegas, who's going to Georgia, cited the fact that Georgia has the best daycare in the country, apparently. Or they've just built a new daycare for his kid to go out there. So like him and his girlfriend, baby mama, fiance, whomever, that's why they're going to Georgia. So, having that connection, and everything in the Miami area, I think was a big thing as well. And, it was just the longevity of that connection in that relationship and everything. And, the safeties coach, Ron English at Florida, I forget who it was, like, I think the Athletic or Inside Gators, one of those two. And they were embedded in the Florida recruiting war room on Wednesday. And Avante Williams, there was no microphone in the gymnasium at DeLand. And so when he made his announcement without amplification, and he's, doing one of those things, and he's like, yeah, I commit to Miami. And the story was told, and you can look it up. It said Ron English being towards the back of that room, he just kind of softly asked, he goes, did he just say Miami? And then he got up and was the first person out of the room when Avante Williams announced that. So, yeah. And it was funny. I saw, Twitter, man. I mean, yeah, Twitter CSI, they'll find anything. Go look up. You can find a picture of it. The hat that Avante Williams had on the table for Florida was like some truck stop rowdy reptiles, like not even Florida branded thing. It was compared to like this awesome, obviously, Miami hat that he had and everything. But yeah, man, it was really great. And, like I was a person who thought he was going to Florida, truth be told. Honestly, I didn't say it as a pump fake. I didn't say it as a jinx or anything, a reverse jinx. But, I tweeted out, people were like, oh, what are we looking for on signing day? How many guys? And I said, well, you had one, Isaiah Dunson, we're talking about him, a 4-star from Tucker, Georgia, a 6'2" cornerback who signed like first thing in the morning. And I said, we had one in a possible, and the possible was Avante Williams. And then parenthetically on that tweet, I said, look, everybody knows he's going to Florida. I'm just saying, because I knew a couple of my close Hurricanes fans friends would have said, you're just capping out here. You're making stuff up. Like, we all know he's not coming here. Why would you say that? So I kind of cut them off the pass and said, Avante Williams is not coming here. But, the guy asked, I'm telling you that we have one in a possible. Technically, we're on the table, whatever. And the Avante Williams' announcement was at 12:30. Someone who would know called me at 11:25 and said, don't hint at it. Don't go in the comments. But I would start writing a notebook for him if you have not already. I said, huh? He said, welcome. Because it's funny because, people even in and around the program, they know what we do at State of the U. I said, I want to see hashtag welcome to the U. And I need a recruiting notebook. And I hope that you have a graphic ready. And he hung up the phone. And I was like, well, okay. And then I got to writing. So, I had a little bit of a hint. If you listen to Andrew Ivins' podcast on 247, it was not him. I can tell you that, that was not my source. But Ivins, he had known for a couple of days that Tay was going to pick Miami over Florida. So, it started to get out a little bit and everything. And that's how, obviously Ivins had a piece ready. I had, both pieces ready and everything. But it's huge. It's huge, and if when you add him, that's 14 out of your 21 signees that are blue chips. And yes, I'm counting Daz Worsham, who was a 4-star all the way through the process. Yes, I'm counting Elijah Roberts. Yes, I'm counting, who was the third one? There was another one who randomly, they're like, oh yeah, he's not a 4-star anymore. Out of my face with that. But yeah, 2/3 of your class are blue chips. Oh, there's my food. I'll be right back. Mark's going to talk to you for a second.
So basically what I'm going to say here is this is a perfect time to do this, actually, because consider this. Cam Underwood has other jobs. He's got a career. He has other outlets that he is responsible for and a personal life, of course. He runs a major website, SB Nation State of the U. He comes on here every week and delivers insight into Miami football every week for at least an hour, and has been doing this going back to 2013 for us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. The Super Chat's available. Please consider using the Super Chat to support what we do here, the voice of college football, and also Cam's stint here each and every week. And as Brett Varner, we're going to get to the comment in just a second. I see it in the live chat. He says simply, and I think many of you would vouch for the same thing in saying, in caps, my favorite show. So thank you so much for the support in that way, and we appreciate the comments. Believe me, we appreciate the comments and the likes. They go a long way, but also just consider the Super Chat is available as well, and we see that somebody just contributed to the Super Chat, and I will get your contribution on the screen. So, Cam, as soon as you made the comment that you had received that word at about 11:25 in the morning, what I pictured was, you see this with the war rooms in the NFL. You see this different war rooms in the recruiting offices of the major college football programs when we watch National Signing Day and watch the NFL draft. When you see that fax come in or that phone call made or that selection's made and you see celebration in the room. I was picturing just you receiving the word on any big recruit, knowing, hey, we're this much better. We're potentially adding an all ACC or all American player at this position. What runs through you? How do you, not that you have to outline your celebration, but in comparison to a big win, just your thoughts and how much energy you get from knowing, hey, we just got this guy. Oh, we lost you here. What happened?
My bad.
There we go.
Sorry, I muted it because I had to talk to the guy at the door. I apologize about that. Honestly, most times I just spring into action first and I react later, because I'm like, cool. So, I have the announcement was at 12:30. It was 12 or 11:35, 11:40. So I'm like, cool. I have 50 minutes, 50, to get 2 pieces done. Cool, whatever. I'd already started the outline of both of them because a little bit behind the curtain, usually if there's a guy who could go either way, you have one of each piece ready, hey, add on to the list. He spurned Miami for Florida, and then you also have a welcome to the U ready. And then, okay, cool. The standard that I've built for myself is that we have a proprietary recruiting notebook for every player, which, goes through the biography, which goes through the recruiting ranking, an evaluation of them as a player, including highlights with positives and negatives, and then how they fit at the position in 2020 and beyond. So that means and I've done that for years, but I've put that on myself to do. So yeah, it was really just cool, have that conversation, whatever. I'm doing like I did now. Hopped on the computer, start typing away because, I think of myself as having the fastest reflexes on the timeline because I will see something and have a piece up on it very quickly, and then boom, we just make that happen. So yeah, usually it spurs me into action before anything else, before any kind of celebration. I love it when I'm out and one of our guys like a Marshall Thomas or a Gabby Urrutia, they get to do the heavy lifting on the welcome to the U and the evaluation part in the immediate aftermath, and then I get to celebrate. But no, I'm as happy as anybody else. Dude, look, again, a top 50 player, the number 1 overall safety according to Rivals and ESPN, the number 2 in the 247 composite safety in this class nationally. Bro, there's nothing not to like. There's no way that I'm gonna dampen my spirits. So yeah, just honestly, it's yes, hell yes, I love it. Awesome. Let me get to work and I'm going to celebrate a little bit later. That's usually what goes through my head. But with Avante Williams, that was, it was the last thing that we were waiting on. There was not going to be anybody past him. So it was a different kind of sensation and scenario because the whole signing day built to this crescendo. You start with a 4-star cornerback, Isaiah Dunson from Tucker, Georgia, used to be committed to Florida State, came to his senses, decommitted from there, visited Miami, committed here, canceled his other visits, signed, like I said, first thing in the morning. So boom, I wake up, I get everything going, I get out the recruiting notebook for Isaiah Dunson. Boom, and it's going through you. You learn, well, even before Isaiah Dunson signed, Willie Moise, not going to sign. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And just keeps going, and it builds to this crescendo. And usually, you know, if you look at anything, and I mean, I know this from my time as a music teacher because it's the structure of things, the golden ratio is just over 2/3% of the way. And that's where the climax comes in books, movies, songs, everything like that. That's where the 4-3 ratio of life basically happens. That's where the climax of the event, and then you have the taper off because, you know, you kind of do that. Miami's recruiting day, it just went shoom to the top and it ends on a high note. Cut, boom, go to black. All of a sudden, you're just like, woo! Like, this is the last thing that's going on, is like this awesome event, you know. And like, look, I'm not taking anything away from anybody who signed early. I'm not taking anything away from anybody who signed in December. But like, those were all known. There was nothing kind of in the balance. Everybody knew that Darnell Washington wasn't going to come here. Everybody knew that Justin Flo was not going to come here. I mean, some people might have thought that Jaden Francois might have come here, but like, if I got to lose out on a Jaden Francois to Nebraska to get a Avante Williams, bye. Enjoy the cold, buddy. Because I mean, you know what I mean. So it was pretty cool.
All right, we appreciate everything that you do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and helping support the channel. Andy K is going to change my punchline of like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. He also adds to it, pray. You can pray for Mark Rogers TV. Absolutely, we'll take your prayers. He prays that the show blows up. You're truly gifted at what you do. It doesn't necessarily sound like it right now, but thank you, Andy. Yes, we will take prayers.
Absolutely.
Cam, we've got a recruiting class, and again, this is before anybody steps on the field. I have said this countless times that I would love if somebody would build a metric and then would reevaluate the classes 5 years later, but that would take an insane amount of time.
I mean, we don't have necessarily metrics, but we do
linemen. But
right. I know. I'm saying we don't necessarily have like a metric kind of in that way, but like everybody will re-rank. And then like all of the sites, I mean, including State of the U, we have multiple guys. I've done it before. We have other contributors who've done it, who will go back and do retrospectives and see, you know, like who are the stars of the class, who played, you know, major roles, and I mean, those kind of evaluatory things. But like in a ranking kind of sense, we do not have.
But to truly do that, you would have to rank every other team in the country.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, I mean, it is kind of insular to like how we did ours, you know, how things worked out in Coral Gables or Hard Rock Stadium and everywhere else around the ACC that we play. Just kind of like, okay, you know, based upon what we thought those guys were going to be coming in, how did the class play out, you know, kind of a thing.
So we have to trust the rankings. This is the 13th rated class according to 247 Sports. In actuality, it could end up being the 5th best class in the country. It could be the 23rd best class in the country. We don't know. But generally, it's probably going to be right around the 13th best class in college football, ahead of Michigan, Penn State, Washington, Notre Dame, South Carolina, North Carolina have not been factors recently. Stanford, Florida State at 22, and others. Wisconsin, who's a major factor in college football year after year after year, at 25. So it's not the number one class. Everybody gets caught up in the top 5 or so, but the 13th rated class in the country and rated ahead of those programs is pretty substantial.
Yeah, I mean, look, you come off a 6 and 7 season and have the number 13, number 12, somewhere in there class nationally. It's not rocket science. You know, like the last thing, like I said, I keep plugging it because I'm really proud of this piece. The feature I did called the recruiting rules. The 9th rule, the final thing, could have easily been number 1, which is you have to win. And I mean, if Miami wins 9 games a year, you're talking that the floor is a top 15 class. And you didn't even have that kind of success. You lose all these games. Everybody knows all the games that we lost, especially the last part of the season when the end of the year was terrible, absolutely, abjectly atrocious. And then you finish, you keep all the early signings together, basically. You lose a Romello Height that they say they didn't lose, but whatever, that's a loss because he flipped to Auburn, okay? But then you go through, you get an Isaiah Dunson, in the way that, and one of our new contributors, he wrote a piece for State of the U talking about, hey, every year Mike Rumpf gets a guy in January, and that guy comes in, he signs, and he plays. There's a conversation to be had about why it comes to pass that it needs to be a late ad every single year, the guys that we're missing on locally and things like that. But even with that being the case, come January, when we need a guy at cornerback, all 5 years that Mike Rumph has worked here, all 5 cycles he's recruited, there has been a guy that he's gotten. You have that be Isaiah Dunson. You know what I mean? You end with the Avante Williams. Again, in spite of the finish on the field, it is, again, I've said it before and say it again. Miami's done less with more on talent than anybody in the country recently. And, you still have this, I mean, you're loaded in this class. Again, 2/3 of your class are blue chip guys. You're already well over the 50% blue chip ratio that Bud Elliott has espoused that you have to be a championship contender, whether it's conference or national. Miami's there, or what was really national, but Miami's there already, and getting better talent, bro. I mean, there's nothing not to like. To the question that was on the screen, yes, you count transfers in the recruiting class. Well, not in the class ranking, but they count towards the number. So De'Aaron King, Quincy Roche, and Jose Borregales, they're not included in the ranking of the class, but as high school recruits, but you have to count them as part of the group. You know what I mean? And so you have 21 signees plus those 3. That means you have 1 slot open because you get 25 new initial counters every year. I also saw the comment where it said, Avante Williams probably runs closer to 4.3 than he does to 4.4. Look, again, that just makes it even more laughable that Florida fans are saying that he's too slow. Open your eyes, go watch the film, regardless of where that kid ended up. Because the whole time they're leading up, they're talking about Tay Day. Hey, Gators fans, what are you doing for Tay Day? Because we know that he's picking Florida over Miami. Tay Day this, Tay Day, and all of a sudden, he's too slow. He's not physical. When literally 20 minutes before, you're singing the exact opposite song. Shut up. To the question on the screen, Mohammed Hussein, is Willie Moise out officially? As of now, yes. Could that change? We'll see. Willie Moise has work to do to qualify academically. He transferred from Hollywood Chaminade Madonna up to Orlando Edgewater to try to get his grades right to be able to qualify. Now, the reason that Miami did not let him sign yesterday, or right now until we know that he's going to qualify, is you do not get a replacement for that scholarship slot. So if Willie Moise were to sign and not make it in, you could not then go out and say, okay, I want another transfer. I need another high school kid. I need another player to slot into slot number 25. If you accept his NLI, that slot is only for Willie Moise and nobody else. So if he doesn't make it, tough cookies. So that's why we're saying, hey, maybe we need to evaluate things, leave ourselves open to potentially getting a transfer, maybe another a late ad. And look, Miami's done well with late additions. If you remember, Corn Elder, he was a guy who signed well after signing day. He ends up being second team All ACC by the time he leaves. So there could be other guys out there who still have not signed. Maybe a guy who had a coaching change at his school, he gets a release from his NLI within the window of this time that there is to sign. There are things to be done, but as of right now, no, that is not necessarily for Willie Moise. If things work out and he qualifies, I would want that slot to go to him, though, because he's 6'3", 291. He was a 4-star recruit. No, he's the other guy because he had a labrum injury. So he missed half of his senior year. All of a sudden now he's not a 4-star recruit because he's not as good an athlete because of the injury. You see what I'm saying? But he's a guy who played both ways in high school. We recruited him as a defensive tackle, but according to Andrew Ivins and a couple other people, Miami's evaluating if Willie Moise makes it in, starting him at offensive line to see if he can help there as opposed to defensive tackle, because we already have one in this class. Elijah Roberts is going to probably bump inside the tackle. We signed 3 or 4 last year in front of him, so we'll see about that. But I would prefer, to go to, what was the other question? I missed that one. The Willie Moise, if he goes to him, if he were able to qualify, that spot goes to him. Do I see the Sag picking up offensive lineman in the portal this summer? That depends on what I was just saying about Willie Moise. If Willie Moise makes it in, probably not. If he does make it in or does not make it in, then we could, yes.
Cam Underwood from State of the U helping us out on Miami Football Talk and even putting off his dinner for a few minutes. So hopefully it's something that heats up well.
It's sushi, so it's not going to heat up.
Okay. All right. We're somewhat safe, even though you're fighting your hunger pains is what we're going to do.
A little bit, but
25 minutes or so.
Yeah. I got to lose some weight anyway. So, it's good to have intermittent fasting. So, yeah.
So we certainly recognize the contributions of Mohammed Hussein and George 850 Kane. I'll get those contributions to the screen as soon as I work my way through the live chat and get to your comments and questions. Vodka Drinker is asking about the impact of Ed Reed on the recruiting class. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I don't think that it did this year. I think that it will maybe in the future. Ed Reed being your chief of staff. When he spoke at the National Signing Day press conference day. So you had Manny Diaz, Rhett Lashley, Ed Reed, De'Aaron King, Quincy Roche, and Jose Borregales were the 6 people who spoke. Ed Reed went over his time, but again, as I tweeted back to somebody, a journalist who's there, I said, "Are you going to be the person who's telling Ed Reed that his answers are too long?" You know what I mean? Like he was slotted for 15 minutes and he went for 24, and his answers were great. They were multi-level, they were detailed, they were passionate, and showed some of these things. I don't necessarily think that it was a bad thing. But what Ed Reed said or confirmed in there, well, Manny Diaz first confirmed it, that Ed Reed can recruit on campus. So he cannot go on the road. He's not going to do in-homes or anything. But when kids come to campus, when he is there, he can be part of recruiting activities on campus. So that's one. 2, Ed Reed also shared that he can recruit via telephone calls and telephone or electronic communications. So I'm sure that he will help out in ways like that moving forward. Now, people are saying, Avante Williams picked Miami solely because Ed Reed was his coach at the Under Armour All-American game. Both Avante and Ed have said that was incorrect. They did have an experience together for that week, and, they talked about, that how they worked together and everything, but that was not the reason. Or anything. But yeah, I think that, having Ed Reed around to set that culture and everything and just be Ed Reed. People are saying, oh, nobody cares about Ed Reed. Nobody knows Ed Reed, because he graduated Miami in 2001. Ed Reed retired from the NFL in 2015. Like, what are you talking? I mean, he was a superstar in the NFL for the course of these recruits' lives. It's not some. It would be. I could understand where you're coming from if you're talking about Alonzo Highsmith, who left in, 89, 90, something like that, plays NFL career and has been an executive for the entire, since, I was a young child. He's been an executive in the NFL, Alonzo Highsmith, that is. And you're saying, oh, this is the guy who's going to push the needle like that all of a sudden. That makes sense. Ed Reed, E-Reed 2-0, like 20 ER on Twitter. Like, come on, like these kids know who he is. 2 questions that I just saw. 1, bigger surprise, Avante Williams or Tracy Howard? Avante Williams, because I worked at Miramar. I was wearing one of my old Miramar Chorus t-shirts that I have because I still have a bunch of them in the house, just, going around, whatever, when I took a nap. I saw Tracy Howard in the halls of Miramar High School on Monday before signing day. I didn't even speak to him then. And I still have a good relationship with Tracy Howard. I'll see him out and anything, like, his family, like his brother Sharon, like his mom Shay, God rest his father's soul because he passed away, unfortunately. Well, if I see any of the Howards, like, I'll still speak to them. They know who I am. Like, I mean, I know Tracy like that. And I saw in his face, I was just like, I don't know what was giving me the thought, but I was like, he's going to Miami. I didn't have any pause or compunction about that. I wrote a blog when I ran the Miramar Sports blog for Miramar High School way back when. That was my first blogging interaction. And I wrote about him for signing day. And oh boy, Florida fans were upset at me. And I was like, I saw the kid and he's moving differently. I don't know, but he's coming. Avante Williams, I fully believed he was going to Florida until I got that phone call. So that is the bigger one, the more surprise get for Miami. But speaking of those two, Avante Williams is the highest rated defensive back signee for Miami since Tracy Howard in 2012.
Is there something about the offensive line position?
I'm sorry.
No, go to it.
Comment. No, man. I appreciate you, Berg. I see you in there. He's always in the comments going back and forth. Sometimes things get a little contentious with him and a couple other guys, and they post a lot of they have GIF wars where they'll just put pictures and videos or GIFs and things like that. But no, hey, glad to be over, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate that, man.
Is there something inherent about the offensive line position as it relates to Miami that keeps this position in a certain place where it just doesn't seem to be elevated? Is it coaching? Is it despite all the massive talent and quantities of talent in Florida and in South Florida that there is lesser talent at that position? What is it that seems to be continuing in regards to the issues in developing the offensive line, in recruiting and developing the offensive line?
Coaching, development, and usage. I mean, those three things just putting together. If you look again at the caliber of kids that Miami's gotten along the offensive line, there are guys that other teams wanted bad. Even if you're going back to a guy like who never played here, like a Barmillo, who was the year behind Brad Kaya from his same high school, Chaminade, out in LA, right? That's a kid that teams all over the West Coast wanted. He never played a snap here. Okay, maybe he wasn't going to be your left tackle of the future. Like, I mean, he played left tackle at high school. He wasn't maybe not going to be your left tackle of the future here, but he never plays a snap. You know, again, I've been calling these names out, but Kylian Herbert was a 4-star. Florida and other SEC teams all over the Southeast wanted him. He chose Miami. I mean, he's played a handful of snaps and none of them in a meaningful situation. You know, excuse me. There's other guys. A lot of them. I mean, just go look at the list, you know, where there is talent. And it is just, not been developed appropriately, not utilized appropriately. And I mean, this is why you have guys who are miscast. You know, you have guys who are more guards than tackles, like a Trevor Darling at left tackle for years. Finally flipped up with Casey McDermott, who was a little bit bigger physically and fit that profile of a tackle more. But I mean, those guys, you know, can make a name for themselves or, you know, catch on a practice squad in the NFL. But it's just the guys have not been developed and the scheme was not friendly to them and it did not allow them the time to really develop. Even Tyree St. Louis, you know, he ended up as like a second, third team All-ACC player by the time that he left. But this is a guy who you figured everybody in America wanted this guy, everybody around the Southeast, all the big time championship caliber teams. And he amounted to almost nothing. You know, so I mean, it's just, and I don't want to, not nothing as a person. You know, his impact on the field could have been greater. I want to say that because I don't want to disparage the man because I don't know him like that to do that. But his impact, you would have thought, with the caliber of athlete at his size and where he went to school. You know, he transferred to IMG, and everybody in America wants this guy. He says, "No, I'm coming to Miami," but I mean, his career did not take the path that we thought necessarily it did, or that it could have potentially. So there's a lot to be desired there. And from the offensive line coaches, from the offensive coordinators that are, you know, putting them in positions to be successful or not doing so. There's been a lot. There's been a lot left to be desired along the offensive line for a good long time. And to the other one question I saw, it seems that Manny knows he's on his last stand. I don't know if Manny's on his last stand per se, but he knows that the process had to change to get to a proper result. And I've been saying for eons that Miami needed to go spread. We should have been one of the first teams to go spread, and we finally did. So that's a good thing, you know, where you have ready-made talent to fit that kind of scheme. And Rhett Lashley was talking about, hey, we didn't have these kind of athletes at SMU. You know, we had guys who were running mid 4.6s, but they're still butt naked, wide open in space with nobody around them. But then you come to Miami when you got like Mark Popes and all of the running backs that we have and all of the tight ends that we have and all the what? I mean, Rhett Lashley got to be a kid in the candy store. I'll tell you like this here. There's more skill position talent on this offense now than when he coordinated offense at Auburn with Nick Marshall. And I'll say that loudly because Auburn, I mean, they did some numbers, but it was a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have this kind of offensive talent. Yo, he has to be a kid in the candy store right now. He has to look everywhere and say, yo, I got another one of those. And then we add Keyshawn Smith, who's a speed demon. And then I got Daz Worsham, who's a record-setting high school receiver and All-American coming off of a full year now off of a hip injury that robbed him of some of his athleticism. I got Xavier Restrepo. I got Mike Harley coming back. I got D. Wiggins coming back. I got Brevin Jordan, the best tight end in America. I got Will Mallory. I got Dominic Mammarelli. I got Larry Hodges, who had 2 touchdown catches before he redshirted last year. I got more. And then, I mean, look, I done named all these dudes. I didn't even mention De'Aaron King, and I don't want to hear anything about a quarterback competition. De'Aaron King is your starting quarterback here. He's one of 6 players ever in the history of college football to account for 50 touchdowns in a single season. This is a guy who Rhett Lashley saw from across the field when he was at SMU and King was at Houston. He said, man, if he was my quarterback, I could do some things. Now, that's his quarterback. Listen, what? But now if you have this spread scheme, hopefully it leans on the offensive line a little bit less, than a pro style scheme than the Dan Enos offense that we saw last year. So it happens, but I mean, I'm excited to see which way things can go. And De'Aaron King, he said, the expectations are high. He has high expectations of himself. His expectation and goal is to have Miami 12-0 and have wherever that takes us. So he's coming in. He said it already. His expectation is 12-0. That's what he's working for. Whether we get there or not is yet to be seen. But that is the goal. That is the standard, and he's going to work his butt off to try to get there. So that's pretty awesome. To the person who says I tweet a lot, I have fast fingers. I don't know what to tell you.
Were they quick in the batting cage? Getting through the zone?
I mean, I could. No, I had really quick hand. Yeah. I mean, I was a fast switch guy. I wanted to be a big power hitter, but I wasn't. I told the story one time. I mean, because I used to be, substantially thinner when I was in high school. And when I played, I hit one home run ever. It was a 2-seam fastball at spring training because I had a 2-week spring break from Cranbrook. Yes, the one from 8 Mile. That's where I went to school. Cranbrook's a private school. Yeah, whatever. Y'all know from Detroit. Anyway. We had a 2-week spring break. We would come down to Homestead, Florida, where they built a major league training facility to try to get the Indians to do their spring training there. But it's so far south, nobody was going to ever go to, Homestead, Florida City. I mean, it's the literal last city before you're on US 1 going down to the Keys. Anyway, we went down there. We had an inter-squad game. Pitcher who didn't like me very much. He was trying to throw at me, but he couldn't throw at me anymore. So he's like, okay, I'll throw a 2-seamer that kind of like was heat-seeking to my front hip. Cleared my hips, got my hands through really quickly, and I'm running because I'm fast. So I was like, cool, I'm running, wherever, like I'm running for a double or a triple. I turned first base, and the first baseman's like, yo, like slow down. I'm like, no, I gotta run. And like, Underwood, that's a home run. And I'm like, what? Like if it was 337 down the line, it went 337 and 6 inches. So I mean, yeah, they were pretty quick.
Wall scraper. Top of the wall scraper.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a line, literal like line drive. Like you couldn't have got out faster if it tried. But yeah, no, I wasn't like a 400-foot towering home run kind of dude. My cousin was one of those dudes. Like he's a little bit bigger. In his teenage years, he hit one at the state semifinals in Michigan. It was regional finals. It was at Groves High School. And they have this big maple tree. They're the Maples or whatever, but it's like it's near Maple Road. Anyways, there's a big maple tree out in left center. And the pitcher was tipping his pitches, and he hit one over that tree in left center. And my uncle was climbing up the backstop and everything. I don't know if that ball ever landed. It might be orbiting Saturn or something, but I mean, it was a moonshot. But I was not that guy.
Yeah. Loved playing high school baseball, but no, I could not get a hold of a ball like that. I hit a couple of balls in my day, but never got one out. But we didn't have a whole lot of fields with fences back then. This was a long time ago.
I mean, my home field didn't have a fence. There were some that did and everything, but it is what it is. I mean, look, I was gap to gap. I would hit them off the wall in the gaps and run for a double or a triple, and everything, but I didn't have that extra. I was thin. I was light in the pants. You know what I said? Like I didn't have the muscular development that you're seeing on your screen right now to get that little extra, elevation to get it out.
Mohammed Hussein, our guy, man, this guy's come out of nowhere and just diving right in.
I love it.
Mark and Cam, beers on me. Meet me at Hard Rock Stadium next season.
Say less.
Ray Walker, yeah. Cam already alluded to the tweeting constantly, but loves listening to Cam's analysis.
Appreciate it. I mean, if I didn't tweet so much, you guys wouldn't know, man. You wouldn't know about me or about us in State of the U or anything. Like it was tweeting a lot was part of my social media strategy. And as I sit here right now and I click over on State of the U profile, we're over 37,000 followers, and I appreciate all of that. But the volume of tweets that I put out as we were growing at a certain time in our development was part of that. And I just like Twitter.
Yeah, and when you never tweet, and the only time you tweet is when you send out the notice that you're going to be on live or that you've got a video just released, you have 3,000 followers on Twitter.
Hey, that's still, I mean, more than some other people who even work hard to cultivate their following. So that's nothing to shake a stick at.
Some folks are commenting on the 2021 class, which I just pulled up with, and this is extremely early, very, very preliminary here. Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida, Texas, Wisconsin, Oregon, Iowa, Miami at 9 with 7 commits.
Yeah. And I mean, a few decommits already, unfortunately, just because that's the way that things go. But I mean, look, there's some good talent already in that class for 2021. You have Andres Borregales, Jose's younger brother, kicker from Chaminade, who is committed. Excuse me. And he routinely hits 50 and 60-yard kicks in high school. And so you can go from one Borregales to another. Somebody asked Jose Borregales, the grad transfer from FIU, about his brother by name in his media availability the other day, which is a primary violation. It's not a secondary violation. It's a primary violation for anybody on the program to mention a recruit by name. And he's like, I can't talk about my family or anything. I'm here to talk about myself. And I'm just like, bro, like, I mean, whoever that was, like, you asked for a primary violation. You know what I mean? What are you doing? But I mean, he's in that class. You have Lawrence Seymour, who's one of the longest tenured commits, offensive lineman from Miami Central, Savion Collins from Palmetto, a defensive tackle, Shimon Mateer from Miami Central also, Tyler Johnson, that's Jaquan Johnson's younger brother, who's bigger physically. He's an outside backer at 6'2", 200 pounds. Khalil Brantley is a wide receiver, probably going to move inside to tight end, 6'2", 190, almost 200 pounds, but he's not the fastest, but like a flex tight end will be a good position for him. Tim Burns, that's Artie Burns' younger brother, at cornerback is in there. Ja'Cory Hamet he's not ranked right now, but he's a Miami Northwestern defensive end outside linebacker in that Sam Brooks mold, but like 2 inches taller than Sam Brooks. So like he's in that class already. So I mean, they're good names among those 8. Now, we're obviously working, Miami, to get some of these decommits back in the boat. As I click over there, the one that I don't even need to wait for this website to load is the number 1 safety in America, James Williams. 6'5", 195 pounds. And he was committed to Miami. He decommitted, but like he's everybody's All-American. He's a top 5 national player. So basically, he is to the safety position in 2021 what Justin Flo was to the linebacker position in 2020, except for he's local and he's massive. I mean, early on, you have a kid who grows that tall and you think, okay, he's going to be outside linebacker. And anytime that, people tweet that, he said, I'm a safety, I'm a safety, I'm a safety, I'm a safety. And like, after having watched him as a junior and a senior, those years where you think that like he might expand this way, like me, like, no, the kid's a safety and he's different because his size, so he's a guy that Miami's trying to get back in this class in 2021. Romelo Brinson from Miami Northwestern is a wide receiver who's also committed, might want him back. Another couple wide receivers, Jacoby George and Fred Eford from Plantation and Hialeah respectively, and then Anthony Hundley, who was at Booker T. Washington as a defensive tackle. We might not circle back on the last one, but I mean, there's a lot of talent, and I'll look into those guys more, and even more guys, and I do have some that are in my brain that I'm not mentioning. Obviously, we're chasing some quarterbacks and some things like that. But, 2021 could be the foundation of of stacking another good class on top of 2020, excuse me. But you got to go and win games. To the question that was on the screen about what is a blue chip prospect, the definition of a blue chip prospect is a prospect who is ranked as a 4-star or 5-star player. So you're not really going to see 0-star. I mean, 0 stars are guys who've not been evaluated. 1 stars, you're not going to see them because they're not, FBS, FCS level talent. Those are maybe your Division III kind of guys. You might see a 2-star who is like, he's either going to be too short or too light for his thing. When Zion Nelson was committed to App State, he was a 2-star because he was 6'5", 235 pounds, 240, playing left tackle, so he didn't fit the physical profile because he was 55 pounds too light. You know what I mean? 3 stars, that's your catch-all kind of thing. It's like he has a name. He's probably going to go to a FCS or FBS team, your Division I or Division I AA, depending on your memory and sensibility. And yeah, there's a wide variety of 3 stars, like the barely known to the almost 4-star, but there's something in his athletic profile or on-field performance which keeps him from being that. 4 stars, those are your guys who you expect to be foundation players for your program. There are fewer of those because they're the higher potential caliber athletes, both on usually demonstrated performance and future athletic potential based upon, their skill set and their build and, where their bodies and things can go. 5 stars, those are your no-brainers. Those are your superstars. Those are the ones who they come in day one and things are different. Those are your Duke Johnsons. Those are your Trevor Lawrences. Those are your Justin Fields. Those are your Reggie Bushes. Those are your Calvin Johnsons. Well, he wasn't even a 5-star. He was a 4-star. But like those guys, the ones who are like, we're going to use them as much as we can over these next 3 years because they're on a quick trip to the NFL. Those guys who are just built different. Alex Leatherwood, when he went to Alabama, now that's the guy who came to Paradise Camp and spoke highly of Miami. He comes in at 6'5", 295, starts at left tackle as a true freshman for Alabama. That's a 5-star. A guy who looks different. Evan Neal last cycle, 6'7", 365, playing left guard at Alabama and might eventually maybe try to move out to tackle. Guys who are just absolutely, and look, you guys know the guys that we've missed on. Your Jerry Judys of the world, your old Grandpa Ridleys, your Julio Jones, your like guys like that are 5 stars. So yeah, your blue chip guys are 4 stars and 5 stars. And you can look this up because Bud Elliott at Banner Society, which used to be the SB Nation National College Football website, they rebranded and things like that. He's talked about this for many, many years. To be a championship caliber team, your roster needs to be more than 50% blue chips. So 4 stars and 5 stars than 3 stars and 2 stars. Now you can be good and have 3 stars and 2 stars. Sometimes your 3 stars develop really well. So they can be guys like a De'Aaron King, who if he was 6'2", would have been a 4-star or 5-star, but he's not. He's 5'10". But you can outplay, your ranking and things like that. So this is why we talk about rankings matter, but they're not the be all end all. But yeah, you want higher caliber guys because the better talent that you have, the better that you can potentially perform. So you want to have more of those blue chips. And it's been demonstrated that if you have over 50% of your roster as blue chips, then you have an actual chance to be conference or national championship contender. So that's a little bit of a walk through that. And I urge you to look it up. Bud Elliott writes a different or a new installment of the blue chip ratio piece where he evaluates every team in America to see which ones actually hit that ratio of having more than 50% on their roster of blue chip caliber talents. And then also, if you look up some of his older work on the topic, he delves into it a little bit deeper than I've just explained.
So let me do the math real quick. If we've got 130 FBS teams that have 80 to 105 on the roster, something in that range, so that's about 13,000 players, 100 per 13,000 players. 75 in the Power 5, that's about 7,500 players. So divide that by roughly 4. So you've got about 1,200. No, you've got about 18 or 1,900 new collegiate football players in the Power 5 every year.
Yeah,
something in that range, 18 or 1,900. Only according to the 247 composite this year, 31 of them, 31 out of 1,900 are 5-star players. So 119 out of that, 190, that's a 10%. You're talking like
1.6%.
1.6%. So here's where they went. Georgia 4, Alabama 4, Clemson 5, LSU 3, Ohio State 3, Texas A&M 2, Florida 1, Texas 1, Oregon 3, Washington 1, Notre Dame 1, South Carolina 1. That should be it.
Yeah.
Maryland 1.
Oh yeah,
Not
Raheem
a whole
Jarrett,
lot of these
five-star
guys walking
receiver.
around.
Exactly. Like we can sit here and like literally name. He's like Mark said, oh, Maryland 1. I said it. I was talking over him and I apologize, but I said, oh, Raheem Jarrett, the 5-star wide receiver. Like I can name these guys. You know what I mean? There's very few of them who are those caliber of players. But yeah, there's a little bit there are more 4 stars, than
So what would your guess be on the number of 4 stars typically in about 300? Like if ESPN lists your top 300, it's something in that range?
A ballpark, 300, give or take 20 either way. You know what I mean? But still, out of 1,900, what are we talking? like I can actually do it. 300 divided by 1900 is okay. That's 15.8%. So you add the 1.6, 16.3. That's 17.3% of the players who came into the Power 5 conferences are that caliber of player. So now when we're talking about on your team, in your recruiting class, over half of them, or on your roster, over half of those players are these caliber guys. This is why you see the teams to the top stay to the top, because again, if only 16 and a half, 17% of the recruits coming to the Power 5 conferences are 4-star and 5-star blue chip guys, you know what I mean? But they're being hoarded by these teams who have more than half of their rosters comprised of that. Now you're going to get the random Ed Oliver to Houston, a kid from Houston who wanted to stay in Houston. You're going to get the random 5-star somewhere. Well, you're going to random 4-star somewhere, like, you know what I mean? That
like even Maryland,
right? But that's
even though it's a Big Ten team, it's still very random.
No, but I'm saying apart from Raheem Jarrett, you might have a guy who's like, you might have 2 or 3 outliers who are just like, I want to be at home. I'm going to Fresno State. I'm going to Houston. I'm going to, Boise or whatever, like things like that. You're not going to see those guys in most places. That 17% of the recruiting class, that cream of that crop at the top there, it's staying to the top, which is why all these recruiting battles matter so much, because so many people want a scarce resource. This is why we're talking about everybody coming to South Florida to try to find these guys, the top end guys from here, because there's a finite amount of them. You're not going to go everywhere and find a Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, all these guys, who are from here at wide receiver or any other position, any other guy. You know what I mean? You're not going to find many of those guys elsewhere. So that means everybody who's looking for a guy like that, who fits that profile, they come and they converge on that same guy. If you look at a Justin Flo, Miami, USC, Texas, Clemson, Georgia, everybody, they said, look, there's like one of those, maybe 2 of those in this class. So that means if you want or need one of those guys and you have the ability to get them, that means that we're all going to be there trying to get that guy. And then, Clemson just said, okay, we're going to let him go. We're just going to get it a 5-star from North Carolina, Trenton Simpson, cool, whatever. Because like Clemson can do that. But again, like I said, there's like 2 of them in this class. I've named both of them. You know what I mean? And Clemson was in on one and said, you know what? Fine, that's cool. You're going to stay out there and go to Oregon. We're going to get the guy around the corner from North Carolina, flip him off of that commitment. He's going to come to South Carolina, or get to South Carolina, Clemson, South Carolina. And then that's going to be it. Because there were 2 comparably talented and physical profile guys. Like there's not a million of them. So everybody's fighting for these same resources. This is why recruiting is so crucial. And again, going all the way back to the beginning of today's live stream, where I was talking about Avante Williams, it's not just an ad for Miami to have gotten him. It's a double whammy because you kept him off of Florida's roster. Same thing with Isaiah Dunson. It's not just an ad for Miami. It's a detraction from Florida State. Because, again, we're all fighting for the same dues, the limited resources. You can say, okay, well, maybe you look at some other guys, maybe you look at some other things. If those other guys had these athletic profiles, if they had the size, speed, potential, whatever, we would be on them. And by we, I mean anybody at the top of the college football world. It is very rare that you find somebody who just falls completely through the cracks. You're not going to have a Santana Moss anymore. A guy who played on a wing T triple option team that threw it 5 times a game throughout his entire high school career, and then walked on when he was on a track scholarship at Miami, walked on to the football team and became the legendary Santana Moss. You're not going to have that anymore. I mean, and there's a variety of reasons. The fact that there's less scholarships now. So the larger schools cannot just hoard those guys on the roster. It's more competitive. You have increased media, you have increased television showing, television coverage of things. So, I mean, yeah, you can go to another school. You can go to a Louisville from Florida and be on television in Florida enough where it's like, hey, your family might not be up there to see you at the game all the time, but they can see you play almost every weekend. The recruiting landscape has changed, but one thing that has not changed is If you are a really top end recruit, a blue chip recruit that you asked about, and I appreciate that question, there's going to be lots of teams in for the same guy, which is why winning those recruiting battles is essential.
Michael Love might have the classiest avatar of anybody on social media. Michael Love,
right?
You look great. And I kept his contribution on the screen for a long time for another reason. And Michael contributes and helps the channel out on a consistent basis. And like the last 2 times he contributed, I caught it right at the end as we were going off, and I hit the end broadcast button, and then Michael was in there contributing, and I did not properly or get the chance to recognize his contribution. So Michael, we thank you so much for supporting Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and specifically our Miami show with Cam Underwood. And we also want to note before we sign off here, Hurricane Logan, thank you so much for the contribution as well, sir. You are consistently here and giving us props, and we appreciate that as well. So Hurricane Logan, thank you so much for the contribution, man.
Why would he owe me push-ups? I don't remember that one. Hurricane Logan, tweet me why you would have owed me push-ups. I don't remember. I'm sorry. Refresh my memory. Sometimes things slip.
And we had so many comments and questions to the channel. Come back, of course, next week and lock in on the notifications, because that's the only way you're going to know when we are able to pull Cam and my schedule together to do this show each and every week. And I tell you, we could go on for 2 hours, and maybe if the super chat would explode, then we could get Cam to push off his sushi dinner for 2 hours of Miami football talk. But for right now, one strong, solid, action-packed, insightful hour from Cam. So we appreciate it. We are going to be right back here to talk UCF, believe it or not. A UCF live stream right now, coming back as soon as Cam lets you know what he's got on State of the U.
Yeah, man, we have a lot of coverage. I have the National Signing Day story stream is up there. We have wall-to-wall coverage of that, coverage of the pressers that happened there. One of our new guys talked about the Ed Reed's statements and his interviews in a couple of different places and things that he said. So helped out with that. Lots of great content. We got basketball. Unfortunately, neither team is really playing really well this year, but we're still covering them because that's what we're doing. And pushing into baseball season, John Reynolds, who's covering women's basketball for us, gets to get back to his favorite sport, which is baseball. He's been covering for us for a while. So we have that and so much more over there. So stateoftheu.com on all social. We're at the State of the U. That's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. And the last thing I'll say before I sign off is that if you are listening and wondering, oh, hey, well, you were talking about this podcast. We had creative differences with the Locked On Canes podcast. So today's episode was the last one that Fred and I are doing. With that. So maybe there might be another podcast somewhere else eventually later, but I think that it was a good podcast. I think we had a good 51, 52 episode run. So I hope that you listen to the signing day recap that was there as well. And you keep rocking with us over here. I try to be with Mark, probably once a week. So, we're here doing that. So, I'm always on Twitter, just like the other guy said, as long as it's not at the secret day job, because they frown upon that. But, sometimes, I can step out for my lunch, or, if I go to the restroom or something, things like that. But yeah, I'm always on social, and, look, you can always send me an email. It's in both of my bios, at Underwood Sports and at the State of the U. And just go over to stateoftheu.com. We have a great contributing group, and I like to think that we do pretty great work. So, come on over and fan with us, guys.
Come on, people. Who else does UCF live?
Just you.
Coming up here.
I mean, hey, you got fake trophies and everything for them?
Oh man, no. I did at the time. Probably posted a 20-minute dissertation on my thoughts on UCF posting and hosting a parade and doing everything that they did. Also, keep in mind that we've got the Wholesome One coming by to take your Miami comments and questions, because once Cam produces content and goes on here for an hour, then it produces even more comments that we've got to respond to. So we've got the Wholesome One, who also is a huge fan of Cam's and gives him props all the time, and does a great job with his YouTube channel. And he comes on here now for the last several weeks to answer your Miami football questions and comments. Cam, we appreciate it. It's great. Yeah. You know what I think of you and the insight that you bring right here, and our partnership here at Mark Rogers TV.
Yeah, it's been fun and everything. So I appreciate it. And I'm going to go dig in this sushi. So I'll see you guys next time.